I had just finished a maiden speech on a Saturday night in Orlando, Florida, the next morning, preparing my luggage for my return flight in the afternoon. I turned on the TV to find out what the political situation was in the United States. It was in 2016. We were in the middle of the presidential election, and since I had been abroad for 3 weeks to host various conferences, I was curious to know what had happened during my absence. I scrolled the channels to find a news channel. I put the remote control, and I continued to prepare my luggage, keeping an ear on the news. Suddenly, an advertisement caught my attention, and instantly, I understood why we were talking about TV program. The advertisement begins with an outside view at night of a couple's house. While the camera zooms in on the house, the words Zona 14th Night appear on the screen. Then a soft but worrying music is heard while we discover inside the house an elderly man moaning in pain next to his bed, preoccupied. His wife enters the room and asks him how he goes. He answers that he has pain in the lower right of the screen in small font. Of a color similar to that of the background appear words, "Fictional scene." The woman steps forward with a desperate look and slowly lifts her husband's shirt before seeing huge, crusted red lesions covering more than half of her lower back. The images are shocking, grotesque, and terrible. They remind of a great third-degree burn during my 31 years of career. I examined hundreds of people with shingles, and I never saw anything as serious as the lesions staged in this ad. Immediately, I understood that the aim was to provoke a strong emotional reaction in the viewer, because that was what I myself felt. Once you see the plates in the back of the man, the advertising has reached its goal. It has caught your attention. The striking staging of these eruptions is enough to instantly modify your state of mind. And it is precisely at the moment when the advertising profoundly modifies your emotional state that your attention turns more to this source of disturbance in your external environment. The stronger the emotion-provoked stimulus, the more attentive you are. Reaction. It is by associating a stimulus with a reaction. That is to say, by creating a conditioning that one generates long-term memories. The process of conditioning begins by associating a symbol or an image with a change of state emotional, which opens the door to the subconscious. In the case of this advertisement concerning the Zone A, now that the advertisement has taken all your attention and it has started to program you, cannot help but want to know the next one. Then reason the voice of a narrator, who says in a serious tone, "If you have ever had chickenpox, the zoster virus is already in you. With age, the immune system weakens and becomes unable to repel the Duisana virus. The use of emotional strategies raises ethical questions. The advertisement telling the viewers that the immune system weakens with age. We see this man looking at himself in the mirror of his bathroom. He looks worried, broken, demoralized. Then a new scene shows his wife talking on the phone in the kitchen. I can't bear to see him in this state. Then we see the man curling on his bed, a hand on the forehead, writhing in pain. Then the narrator makes a reinforced, direct suggestion when appears on the screen the same message: 1 person in 3 will have shingles in his life. Then the narrator continues while the same sentence remains displayed. The redness can last up to 30 days. Then we see the wife entrusted directly to the camera. If only I could do something for the camera, help. Again, we see the man who suffers, and on the screen appears the following sentence: a person on C suffering from shingles will suffer from long-term neuralgic pain. This sentence remains displayed on a screen, while the narrator explains, some people with shingles will suffer from long-term neuralgic pain that can last between a few months and a few years. Do not wait for one of your relatives to suffer from shingles. Contact your doctor or pharmacist to learn more about the risks you will run. Now let's take a closer look at the objective of this advertisement. First, it changes your emotional state. Once it has all your attention, you immediately become more impressionable and open to the information that follows, being more inclined to accept and believe this information without analyzing it. If you feel scared, vulnerable, victim, worried, shocked, weak, tired, or suffering, you have all the more opened yourself to the information conveying his emotions. It is likely that you wonder if this could one day happen to you. Several times certain facts are displayed on the screen so that you read them. It strengthens the programming more. While the thinking brain is reading the content of the narration, surreptitiously penetrates into the subconscious like a dictaphone. The latter saves all the text and writes an inner program. Then, by means of a direct suggestion, the narrator raises fear in you by personally suggesting that you already have the shingles virus in you, and that because of the natural process that is aging, your immune system is no longer strong enough to counter the virus. This activates your emotional brain, seat of the autonomic nervous system, which is then programmable. Once the suggestions reach your autonomic nervous system, this latter obeys without even asking questions and is responsible for producing in your body the chemical changes corresponding to its literal suggestions. In other words, your body is programmed subconsciously and automatically so that your immune system weakens. The moral of the advertisement: you are at risk, and it is better not to wait until you are sick. The impact of the advertisement even goes a little further. If you have already had chickenpox and after watching this advertisement, you think your immune system is weak because of your age, you will think you have even more need to prevent shingles, and you will even more want to buy the corresponding medication. If it turns out that you already have shingles at the time you are watching the advertisement, when you see that your situation is not as serious as that of the actor, you think, maybe I need to take the medication now so that my situation does not get worse. I do not want to end up like him. And if you don't have shingles at the end of the ad, you might wonder if I'm one of the 2/3 of the population that's not at risk, or the 1/3 that's going to get the virus. If you hope you're not 1/3, that means you believe there's a chance you're vulnerable to the disease, which leads you to think unconsciously that you already have it. Do you know what I found most absurd in this ad? There is no mention of the drug, which means there's no obligation for the advertiser to disclose its side effects. Publicity piqued my curiosity. I stopped packing and I looked on the internet to see if the same pharmaceutical company had made another advertisement. I wanted to know, according to them, which drug would decrease the severity of injury of the actor who was fabricated and exaggerated. After a quick search, I found several similar advertisements on the same theme and with the same formulation, but with some variants. Nevertheless, all had a common point. Their purpose was to attract the attention of the viewer. In the following advertisement, that I found a woman wearing swim goggles made lengths in a swimming pool. All is in black and white. There is a difference with the previous advertisement, Lenara. The woman who speaks in an authoritarian tone plays the role of the herpes zoster virus, expressing herself in the thoughts of the impressive woman. Linda, the aging does not slow you down, but it weakens your immune system and increases the risk that you are in the process of contracting me, the herpes zoster virus. I hide inside you since you had chickenpox. At any moment, I could appear in the form of painful redness. Suddenly, the black and white scene gives way to a color scene in which a man raises his shirt and lets appear the PIR, which is again the grotesque lesion, and puffy can only the attention. And also, suddenly we return to the swimmer in black and white. The advertisement continues in the same tone as the previous one. First, we make a striking statement. Then we show a shocking image that modifies the emotional state of the viewer, and thus makes him more impressionable. And finally, we appeal to the auto-suggestion. so that he wonders if he already has shingles. This advertisement also implies that even when we are in good health, we exercise and take care of ourselves, we may be victim of the virus, which suggests that no one is immune. Here again, the words are reinforced by a message, leaving, on screen, 1 in 3 people contracts me during his life. Linda, will it fall on you? And if you identify with this woman, the voice speaks to you directly. Then the tone of the advertisement changes. Then one hears a new narrator speaking with confidence and lightness without worry or concern. And this is how Linda bought me the drug X. The scene remains in black and white, except the swimsuit of the woman, of his hat, and the name of the drug that appears on the screen in a large and sophisticated font. Then the name of the drug prints in your brain, at another level. Again, the advertisement created an association between, on the one hand, your health and your safety, and on the other hand, the drug that will protect you. The slogan then appears on the screen, read by the same narrator who claims that the drug helps boost the immune system and counter shingles, to protect against you shingles. At the end of the ad, the narrator concludes thus: Drug X is used to prevent shingles in adults aged 50 years and over. This drug should not be used to treat shingles, and it does not help. Programming is effective. What it is, the cunning or even dishonest advertiser, is that this message is confusing and disrupts consciousness. But at the same time, it is programmed your subconscious so that it believes that your immune system is weak, that you probably already have the virus in you, and there is strong abilities that you will ever have shingles. Even if you are healthy, of SECRÈTE, you are told that without this medicine, you will probably suffer, although there is no guarantee that shingles will disappear easily, and that it might not be effective if your immune system is FAI. Finally displays the list of side effects that are not side effects, but actually direct skin rash, similar to shingles, redness, pain, itching, swelling, bump, heat, blue, or swelling where the medicine is injected, and headache. Consult your doctor if you plan to rub shoulders with newborns, pregnant women, or people whose immune system is weakened, because this vaccine contains a weakened version of the varicella virus, and you could infect them. Wow, I started to wonder what planet I lived on. This kind of programming leads to question whether we really have free will, or do we all make choices based on conditioning, making us believe that the solution to our problem is a beer, shampoo, and conditioner, the latest smartphone, or a drug that may or may not relieve you of the zone A virus that you may or may not have. Very often, advertising relies on lack and separation and reminds you to want what you do not want, what you need to find your place in society, or fill a feeling of emptiness or loneliness. And of course, in this case, if you are sick or think so, the advertiser has the answer to your symptoms. During a final search, I came across a similar ad on the same theme. There is an actor going through great suffering for 17 days. The shocking staging of a huge lesion and messages displayed on screen to influence the viewer's reflection while reinforcing the content like other advertisements. This one explicitly informs the general public that this medicine is not used to treat shingles. But in the end, the bell home smiles, and I say, I think I'm going to do a trial on this. I wonder why he would do a trial knowing that he's already had shingles for 17 days, and this drug doesn't treat this disease. All this really confuses me. A long time ago I learned from training myself that by definition hypnosis is a disorientation of the processes inhibiting consciousness that allows to bypass the analytical mind so that the individual becomes very impressionable and strongly reacts in his subconscious to suggestions and information. While the consciousness is busy trying to understand what's going on, the subconscious absorbs everything without making any distinction. If you can disorient people by using information, or in today's world misinformation, a shock or confusion, we open the door of the subconscious and people can then be programmed. In this chapter, we will learn to do the reverse and reprogram positively the negative conditionings that we have long believed. 3 levels of mental activity for a brain: the analytical mind, the consciousness, and the subconscious. You now know that when you modify your brain waves that pass from beta to alpha, you slow your neocortex, the thinking analytical brain. You then leave the consciousness and enter the world of the subconscious. One could then say that if you are someone a little conscious without having thought, activates your consciousness, leaves the thinking neocortex and enters the midbrain, i.e. the subconscious, seat of the autonomic nervous system, and the cerebellum. If you have ever seen a person totally captivated by a television program, to the point of not hearing you when you try to talk, to him it is possible that it is in the name of alpha state in which it is very influential. The influence is the ability to accept and believe information without analyzing it. In this state, the viewer is so omnibulated by what they are looking at that it seems immobile, as in transience. Nothing else exists too. He says that the object of his attention, if the person does not analyze the information to which he is exposed, he has chances of accepting and believing them in the absence of any analytical filter. From there, it is logical that the more one is impressionable, the better. Less one uses his analytical brain, the reverse is just as true. The more one is analytic, the less one is impressionable. Consequently, there is less chance whether your brain is in the alpha world or between France. Examine figure 8.1 in the appendix to better understand the relationship between the impressionability, the analytical spirit, the trans and the brain waves, what the creators of the advertisements that I have mentioned previously perfectly, and that the best way to program a person to act in a desired way is to put his brain in alpha, so that the presented information is not analyzed by being rebroadcast. The advertisement or a similar advertisement penetrates sooner or later into the subconscious of the viewer. The more one is exposed to the stimulus, in this case, the advertisement, the more the programmed reaction becomes automatic. In the end, when one has unconsciously memorized the stimulus and the reaction is automatic, the consciousness no longer needs to reflect on the given information or analyze it. During this time, the subconscious maps the received information and stores it. Once this mapping is established in each brain, once you are exposed to advertising, it continues to influence the same neural networks and reinforce the same program, the same thoughts and beliefs. So this information can not only influence your health, but also give you the solution to the problem created by advertising, among other situations that increase the influence shocks, traumas, or strong emotional reactions. For example, when people are stunned or exposed to emotionally charged situations, it is common that the brain enters a modified state. When the brain is suspended following a sensory overload, for example, caused by a car accident, the person becomes influential. In severe cases, the person identifies with the shock, becomes rigid and insensitive, and his ability to think is reached. Consequently, when one is exposed to the aggressive vision of major rash, and one feels disgusted by the images with which one associates the music and narration that are suitable to create a disturbing atmosphere, threatening the door of the subconscious opens, which makes the person more easily programmable. Remember, the subconscious is just below the consciousness. It is the limbic brain that houses the subconscious, and the autonomous nervous system that controls all the automatic biological functions that follow one moment to another. That a thought is programmed as a servant, obeying the orders of his master. The SNA executes the mental demand. If you are told that your immune system weakens with age, and that 1 in 3 people who have had chickenpox in their life will be affected by shingles, the emotional load of this experience allows this message to overcome your analytical thinking mind. In response to this information, Your SNA obeys the orders and starts to weaken your mind, immune defenses, and for advertisers to get value for their money. The ideal is that the advertisement is regularly broadcast late at night when we are most influential. Why? Because in the darkness, the body secretes more melatonin, which slows our brainwaves and prepares us for sleep and dreams. In the evening, our brainwaves go from beta to alpha, then to theta, then to delta. We are less analytical, and the door of the subconscious opens, while in the morning, when we are awakened by daylight and our brain produces serotonin, it is the opposite effect. We pass from delta waves to theta waves, then to alpha. Our subconscious is then always open to programming before arriving at beta. So if you are an announcer and you know that most of the public is completely unaware of how unconscious programming works, why bother to develop a series of late-night advertisements conveying the desired message, reinforced by the right dose of fear, in order to capture the viewer's attention and program his autonomous nervous system that will execute the orders given just before sleep? The golden rule: avoid watching television shows from websites or participating in all kinds of entertainment that do not suit you, not only before bedtime, but even at any time. A kaleidoscope to return in trance for years. I think about how we are all systematically programmed to have beliefs that limit us to believe that we need something external to transform our inner feeling. After all, the key to advertising is the incessant and addictive need to consume external products to promote our inner well-being. This belief that reminds us that we are separated from everything is constantly implanted in our brain by the media, television programs, advertisements, video games, websites, and sometimes even music. The strategy is really simple. If we manage to hook people by making them feel lack, fear, anger, opposition to prejudice, pain, sadness, and anguish, he remains dependent to make disappear his feelings of someone or something outside. If you remain perpetually preoccupied and constantly feed emotions of survival, it is impossible for you to believe in yourself. And if it was possible to reverse this programming so that you have unlimited beliefs about yourself and your life, that is exactly what we have been doing for several years at our higher level seminars, using two simple tools, one of which is a game used by children for a long time, the kaleidoscope. The only difference is that in this case, we use it combined with advanced technology to induce TR. Until now, we have used meditation with eyes closed to go back into transcendence and go to alpha NDE, then theta. But if we can create these same brain areas with eyes open while intentionally exposing ourselves to information going in the direction of our dreams and goals, we can reprogram and live states of superconsciousness instead of the states of unconsciousness that we live in, the quotidian now. Why the kaleidoscope? For many years now, mystical experiences are my great passion. Every time I live one of these deep experiences of hyperlucy, it creates in me lasting changes that strengthen my understanding of myself and my connection with the mystery of life. Once you have a mystical experience and have a first glimpse of what is happening in the invisible, it is impossible to resume the normal course of your life. And with each consequent mystical experience you get closer to the source of the completeness of unity and the invisible unified field. The good news is that mystical experiences are not reserved for people such as the theory of Avila, Francis of Assisi, or a Buddhist monk meditating for 40 years. Everyone is able to experience mysticism. When I have this kind of experience, I feel more real than anything I've known in my life, and I lose all notion of time and space. Often just before being absorbed into the experience, I see in my head and sometimes in the outside world circular geometric structures composed of light and energy. They tend to resemble mandalas, except that they are not static. A's of frequency seem to fractals to describe them. I would say they are living, changing in motion, and in perpetual evolution towards more complex forms. These structures are reminiscent of those seen in a kaleidoscope, except that if they are three-dimensional and not just two-dimensional. When I focus my attention on these divine geometric shapes, it changes and I almost instantly know my brain turning its informational structures into a very clear image that I am about to make a deep mystical experience. That is why my team and I wanted to create a kaleidoscopic visual support for my participants in the hope of inducing this kind of experience. At the beginning, we failed to find sequences that fit the times. All fractal geometry files available on the internet were produced by computer, while I wanted to create a more realistic representation. After a lot of research, my team and myself, we found a family making kaleidoscopes for 3 generations and decided to buy one of their best products. Then we rented a Reed camera, the first professional digital camera manufacturer for cinematographic use that are most often used in Hollywood movies. Then we fixed on the camera a fiber optic filament that we introduced into the kaleidoscope. Then we fixed a motor at the end of the kaleidoscope to induce a rotation, allowing crystals and indoor oil to perform a smooth and regular movement. For several hours, we shot in a Seattle studio, beautiful images with beautiful colors on a background black. The black color represents the absence of matter, the space in which we merge with pure consciousness. This is the infinite black space of the vacuum discussed in Chapter 3. It took us several days to shoot all the sequences, and because of the gravity, the crystals and oil fell and accelerated with each rotation. So it took a technician to check every second view to ensure that the transitions were smooth. Otherwise, the risk was to interrupt the trance of the spectators. It took months to refine all these images and arrive at a 1-hour video that we use at our higher-level seminars. Finally, we asked for a talented composer, Frank Pisciotti, to create the accompanying soundtrack. Our goal was for our participants to be continually mesmerized by the beautiful symmetries and variable geometric shapes, the film of your future at our top-level seminars. Each participant receives a pleasant and easy-to-use software called Mind Movies that allows him to make a film of his future life. We couple the technique of mental film to the video of the kaleidoscope according to what participants want to create in their life. The film they design exposes them to specific images and written information, helping them to create the future of their choice. Some seek to cure a disease, to strengthen their immune system, to attract a new job, to seize new opportunities, to travel the world, to attract abundance, to find a new companion or companion, to make mystical experiences, and so on. The purpose of the film is to remind them that they can fulfill their dreams, to accomplish the extraordinary, and help to superconsciousness. The purpose of this personalized video is 1. To help participants to ask a clear intention about their future. 2. To program their consciousness and their unconscious to attract that future. 3. To biologically modify their brain and body so that they reflect that future in the present. 4. To systematically associate its images with music in order to create new ones, neural resonance in their brains, and emotionally recondition their bodies, and therefore their minds. It is for them a way to remember their future. The Mind Movies technology was founded by 2 Australian partners, Nathalie and Glenn Ledwell. They are not only the designers of this technology, but also the emblematic figures of its impact. It all started in 2007, when a friend showed them a film of his life that he had created. Later, he came to see them in the idea of launching a company that would later give birth to Mind Movies. Software to start their adventure, they had to create a website. To distribute the software and give to people around the world instructions for them to create their own movie. but they were already the head of 4 companies and knew almost nothing about the internet or e-commerce. Glenn barely knew computer, and Nathalie had never heard of YouTube. However, he recognized that mind movies could be a very effective tool to help people believe that they were able to create their future. With this idea in mind, they decided to put online on YouTube a video about the impact of mental movies. At the end of the video, internet users were encouraged to go to their website to learn to create their own movie in early 2008. After receiving countless emails from customers explaining that these mental films had transformed their lives, Nathalie and Glenn decided to take the next step. They took a flight to the United States, participated in a web marketing seminar, and started to organize the worldwide marketing of their software. But when they arrived in the United States, their bank account was almost empty, and they had almost nothing left to pay for the necessary services for the internationalization of their project. It meant that they had to learn and practice everything needed to do the work on their own. For months, they worked 12 hours on the day in their office, that is to say, in their room. It forced them to push their limits enormously, face daily with entrepreneurial and personal technical difficulties. At least they had their secret boot, the mental film that he had made himself personally in this film. Nathalie and Glenn mentioned the number of clients he wanted to attract, and what kind of client he would be considered to be respected in the business community, and anticipated what he would do when it would be crowned with success. For example, the restaurants they would go to, and the holidays he would take with the family. Finally, he wanted to make $1 million of sale, for they had no reason to limit themselves to their friends in the marketing world, selling products for millions of dollars. Their software costing $5,000. They watched their mental film several times a day to relax and stay aligned and inspired, even when daily everything seemed to go wrong. But he knew that the culmination of all their efforts, all the risks they were taking, and all their dreams would be the day of the worldwide launch of their software. The fateful date was soon in sight. It was then that the unthinkable planned to come in September 2008. The launch coincided with the global financial crisis. Financial institutions around the world were facing cataclysmic losses, while families and individuals had lost their savings and livelihoods during the worst crisis since the Great Depression. As for Glenn and Nathalie, they were also facing financial difficulties. To launch their products, they had accumulated $120,000 in debt. If they failed, they would lose all their homes, cars, and investments, not to mention the debts they would crumble under. On the morning of the launch, without their knowledge, their email distribution system had to undergo maintenance, so none of their customers had confirmation by email from his purchase. At mealtime, they had already received thousands of complaints, in addition to difficulties with their online bank. The bank wanted to freeze their account due to unusual activity, but in the evening, they had lived the most memorable day of their life. During the first hour of the first day, they crossed the bar of $100,000. At the end of the day, they were at $288,000. In the end, Glenn and Nathalie ended up making for $700,000 of sale from a log here worth $97 without going up range. But the story doesn't end there. Of course, they were delighted with this feat, but they were facing a last major challenge because of the volatility of the financial markets and the uncertainties of that time. Their bank did end up freezing their account, which prevented them from accessing their money. It meant that they could not pay the commissions to their affiliates, nor the $120,000 they had to create, nor share the profits with the people who helped them to launch it. All depended on the release of their funds. Finally, after 6 months after remaining true to their vision and having permanently watched their mental film, they were able to access their account and offload the financial burden that had almost led them to ruin. But this is where things become really interesting. while the world was still reeling from the crisis. The value of the US dollar against the Australian dollar soared. And so, thanks to the exchange rate, when they transferred all their money to their Australian account, they ended up earning $250,000 more. Thanks to this sum added to the commissions they had received for promoting partner software, Glenn and Nathalie managed to reach their goal of earning $1 million. They feel they owe much of their success, while the whole world got bogged down in crisis, to their mental film that they watched every day. This example beautifully illustrates the potential of mental films. If the options to create it are infinite, the process, nevertheless, remains relatively the same. To begin, the participants choose a song they will never tire of listening. Then they choose images and/or videos of themselves or a future event and organize them in sequence so as to tell a story corresponding to their future. Finally, we ask them to find words, phrases, and specific statements to superimpose on the images using the same technique as the world from advertising that programs people to be victims or to feel desire and lack mental films, can positively program participants and help them to overcome their limits and create the life of their choice. In the higher level seminar, our participants watch the kaleidoscope video before watching their mental film, because it helps them to get in dialpha and tiet and to enter in trance with open eyes, which allows them to access the subconscious. So throughout this meditation, they are more impressionable, more open to the reprogramming they have chosen. This is important because the more impressionable they are when they watch their mental film, the less they have of chance to be analytical and constantly have in mind thoughts of the type, how is it going to happen? It is impossible. I do not have the means. I failed last time. Why will I now succeed? The kaleidoscope is therefore used to induce TR favoring the reprogramming defined by the mental film. When our thoughts disappear, the consciousness no longer analyzes the information that also arrives. These last ones print directly in the subconscious. Over the years, many studies have made it possible to understand how the right and left hemispheres of the neocortex interact. We now know that the right hemisphere treats abstract and creative nonlinear spatial thoughts, while the left hemisphere treats methodical and mathematical, linear, rational, logical information. However, recent research also suggests that the right hemisphere treats cognitive novelty and the left hemisphere cognitive habits. This means that when one learns new things, the right hemisphere is more active, and when learning becomes routine, its content is stored in the left hemisphere. In the majority of people, it is the left hemisphere that is most active because of the automatic habits and programs they have memorized and which are engraved in their minds. That is why language is also stored in the left hemisphere. It is the product. Usually, it can be considered that the right hemisphere corresponds to the unknown, while the left hemisphere corresponds to the known, since it is logical that the right hemisphere is romantic, creative, and non-linear, while the left hemisphere is methodically logical and structured. We have even observed in real time this double processing of data by examining the brain imagery of our participants. The succession of geometric fractal forms of the kaleidoscope being unprecedented. The objective is to transcend the perceptual networks, tools, and associative centers of the brain associated with people, things, objects, known places, and times. These geometric structures are the reflection of fractal shape that we find everywhere in nature and activate, therefore, the centers of the lower part of the brain. It is for this reason that we cannot, by looking in the kaleidoscope to see his Aunt Marie, the bicycle that we own in the 6th, or the house of his childhood, because we do not activate associative centers related to the memory, mainly located in the left hemisphere of the brain, by stopping to reflect and analyze and passing in the name of alpha or theta. We promote an intensification of the associative center, the activity of the right hemisphere, this one reflecting the unknown. One has more chance to create something new. Graphics 9A1 and 9A2 in the appendix show the brain examinations of two participants in the name of alpha and coherent theta. Graph 9A1 shows the brain examination of a participant in coherent alpha wave while he looks at the septoscope. Graph 9A2 shows a person in coherent brainwave theta while he looks at the kaleidoscope in transience on graph 9A3. We see the whole brain of another participant in the name of theta as he looks at the kaleidoscope. This graph shows a three-dimensional image of the almost entirely red brain of another participant, which indicates that almost the whole brain is in TTA wave. The red oval line on the right indicates that his brain is in theta wave. On graph 9-4, we see the brain activity of a participant looking at the kaleidoscope. The right hemisphere is more active, the person being in transience and opening to renewal. This graph shows the brain examination of a participant at different times during the viewing of the kaleidoscope. The red and orange areas indicated by the blue arrows on the right reveals a strong wave activity of delta, theta, alpha, and beta. When we put the kaleidoscope film in our upper-level seminars, we turn off the light of the room to stimulate the secretion of melatonin and promote the entry into transience. I ask the participants to relax, to consciously slow down their breathing while doing their brain areas pass from beta to alpha. I then ask them to constantly relax in their body and to enter into even more contact with it. My idea is to bring them into an intermediate state between the day before and the sleep, which allows them to be very impressionable and prepares their brain to accept the revival programming of the mental film, as well as the advertisements aired at the end of the evening, influence the viewers who are no longer on their guard because of the production of melatonin to prepare them for a restorative sleep. My goal is also to stimulate the secretion of melatonin in the participants so that their brain waves pass in alpha stinking state, and it can open up completely to the information and possibilities that is expressed in their mental film. The soundtrack of your future. The music has the power to bring back very specific IR memories. That is why the actor Dick Clark said the music is the soundtrack of your life. As soon as you hear a beautiful song nostalgic, your brain begins to recall images from certain times of certain places, image that connects you to different people you have met at different events you have experienced neurologically. The song acts as a stimulus, triggering the activation of a specific set of neural networks in the brain. By association, you see in your head image stops of your past. We speak of associative memory. If you immerse yourself in the memory evoked by this song, eventually, starting to sing and dance, you may notice that the emotions associated with your memories are moving throughout your body, that this memory is about your first love, your last holiday, year of study, or your sensations before entering the field to play the biggest match of your life. It will be strongly associated with emotions, and by feeling sufficiently deeply, these feelings, you reconnect with the energy of your past. The stronger the emotional reaction is, the stronger the memory is intensely revived. So your past comes back alive, and instantly you make a mental journey back in time. As in the past, your body is stimulated and makes you experience the same emotions as before, with the same state of mind at that moment. You are all turned to your past. The more the emotion associated with the event is intense, the memory related to long memory term will be strong. But whether this memory is negative or positive, it has no impact on the way it is treated by your mind. For example, memories of trauma, of betrayal, and shocking events convey very strong negative emotions. When you again experience pain, fear, anger, sadness, and intensity of emotions, associated with these traumatic memories. Our internal chemical state changes. In fact, we are more attentive to the external source of our emotions. And if you could create a film of your future by associating it with a song that motivates and inspires you to the point of stimulating yourself to change your mind state and connect to it, the energy of your memories to come. If music is the soundtrack of your life, as well as chants transport you in the past, could you not also give life to your future? This is where mental films intervene by deliberately associating very strong and touching images of your future with words and sentences. By reinforcing the content and high emotions and inspiring music, you create long-term memories that biologically extract your body from the past and plunge it into the future. In other words, the images give rise to feelings in connection with the experiences you want to live. These images can relate to the house in which you want to live, the holidays that you want to offer yourself, a new career, your freedom of expression, relational or physical healing, interdimensional experiences, and so on. These are just a few of the infinite number of possibilities available to you in your future. By watching your mental film, the more you feel lesma of your future, the more you are attentive to the images that are at the origin of these feelings. This is how you give life to your future by creating memories to come, and it is your song that will give a magical dimension to your future. Because it is the emotions that are associated with these that will transform your energy, that will be the one you feel when this future is present. That is why it is important to choose an inspiring and motivating music. Then the principle consists in adding in your mental film words of the profound assertions or certainties that you have and that remind you who you are and what you believe about your future. You can even add a chronology if you wish. Here are some examples of affirmation. The doors of the invisible open to me, and I regularly make mystical experiences every day. My body heals. My word has weight. Every day I feel deeply loved. I attract to me wealth. All my needs are constantly satisfied. Every day my body rejoices. Every day the divine is present in my life. My companion and I are on a foot of equality. It teaches me new things by showing me the example. I am constantly guided by synchronicities. Every day I feel fuller. Every day my immune system strengthens. I show courage in my life. My genius is unlimited. I am always aware of the force that animates me and that surrounds me. I believe in me. I welcome the unknown in my life. When I call to the mind, it answers me. If you rethink the video of your favorite song or a scene of your favorite musical, there is chances that you know all the lyrics of the song, as well as the images associated with each note, each rhythm, each melody, and every har. It is very likely that these associations evoke in you a period and a place of your life with a number of people, emotions, and experiences. Is exactly what you do with your mental film, except that instead of remembering your past, you create memories of your future. If you listened enough times to your song while observing the images of your future, would it not be possible that by hearing your song dissociated from your mental film, you are automatically transported to these images of a new future, just as you were transported to your past with practice? Not only you feel the emotions that connect you to your memories coming, but also in addition, your body aligns biologically with this future. You already know why things are so. If your body is your unconscious and it does not know the difference between an emotion created by an external event and an emotion created by a simple thought, it then begins to believe that it lives in the present, this future reality. In the sense that our environment sends signals to nog genes, and where emotions are the product of external experience. By welcoming the emotions related to these events before it even happens, we can transform our body, which biologically aligns instantly with our future. And since all genes make proteins, and these latter are responsible for the struct and the functioning of the genes, organism it changes biologically. Your future is already there. Let's take the point. What would happen if you invited a group of people to take a step back for 4 or 5 days by moving them away from the constant stimulation of their external environment that reminds them of the personality they believe to be? If you separate them long enough from their surroundings, the places they frequent, and the activities they do every day, at the same time, these people would remember what they really are: unlimited human beings. And if you spend the first day, or even 2 days, teaching them to create greater cardiac and cerebral coherence, and if all on the days she cultivated her states sooner or later, it makes sense. They would be better able to open their heart and take advantage of their cerebral faculties. She would even be focused on the vision of a new future without letting herself be distracted, and, at the same time, they could more easily feel the emotions related to this future. Having created a greater coherence in their heart and in their brain, they would also have a more coherent energy field, and their electromagnetic signature would be clearer. By systematically working to go beyond herself, of their body, of their environment and time, by slowing down their cerebral C's, by entering the unified field and transcending their tridimensional environment, it would be easier and easier for them to activate their heart and to create after training to transcend their body, their emotions, their habits, their suffering, their illness, their identity, their limited beliefs, their analytical mind, and their unconscious program. They would be ready, when presented with the technique of mental film, to integrate a greater number of information about their future. This is how we use the mental film in our seminars. A film, the mind, is, in a way, a modern version of a technical vision table used to clarify its objectives and stay focused on. The mental film is dynamic, while the vision table is static. Combined with the kaleidoscope, the technology of mental film is a formidable tool contributing to bring your future to life. By regularly experiencing it, is also a wonderful way to clearly understand what you want to do with your life, and to remember on a daily basis what the future has in store for you, so you have an intention. The mental film being a very versatile technology. It has a lot of application. It can be used to attract self-love, wealth, health, fulfilling profession, and material goods, but it can also be used with children and adolescents to help them have a vision of their future and give them the feeling of having some control of their life. Nowadays, so many young people are overwhelmed by the frenzied rhythm, as the pressures and demands of modern society. In the United States, suicide is a major cause of death among teenagers. The founders of mental film have therefore decided to use this technology in colleges and high schools to help young people have a clearer and more specific vision of their future. Mental film is also used in the entrepreneurial environment to foster team spirit and the implementation of a long-term vision. Entrepreneurs use software to create companies' mission statements, strategies, and business plans. Imagine a team of motivated colleagues reading and intellectualizing their mission statement, but also seeing it happen dynamically before it is even realized in the present. Integrative medicine is another discipline in which therapists use this technology to help them visualize that they are in perfect health, to heal faster, and stay daily focused on a new lifestyle. It is also used to treat addictions and in fitness centers to help patients clarify the future they wish to implement. The mental film technique has also been used to help unemployed people to find a new job or even change career and lead a more productive life by giving them a vision of their not only for themselves, but also for their family. As you see, this technology has an infinite number of applications. It allows people to build a new reality by remembering on a positive note. daily basis, the choices they have to make, the new behaviors they have to establish, and the feelings they want to experience. Once we program his emotions and attitudes in the subconscious, we can put an end to the old habits, the routine lifestyles, and the unconscious reactions. It is entirely up to you to see how far you want to go when you create your future. If it is good to watch his mental film at any moment, I suggest, nevertheless, to watch it, especially at the awakening and at bedtime, because these are the moments when you are most influential. By watching it as soon as you open your eyes, start your day on a positive note by being focused on what you want to achieve in the day and create in your future. And when you watch it just before going to bed, your subconscious can plunge back into it. During your sleep, prepare your body and your mind for your future, and find solutions that your autonomous nervous system can put in place during your sleep in reality. You can watch it at any time you need motivation or make a different choice. The key is to make sure to be perfectly present during the viewing. Since we use the technique of mental film, I heard testimonies of participants who were able to buy new houses and separate from their old home while it was for years. I have seen some that could take holidays unannounced. I have also seen couples form as if by magic. I heard countless stories of abundance, of freedom found, career change, buying new healing cars of all kinds of burden lighten, and of course, profound mystical experiences that have transformed forever their beneficiary. But it is not magic or witchcraft. It is simply to learn to become the conscious creator of his life, to align himself with his destiny. Use a mental film is to turn on a radar to spot his future in mind regularly, plunging your heart and mind into your future, all the thoughts and emotions you have, as well as the actions, the experiences, and choices you make in the time necessary to make your future reality appear, are like changes of course, helping you to reach the chosen destination. The more you give life to your future through your intentions, your attention, your energy, and your love, the more this new reality unfolds because you remember your future as you would remember your past. Your job then is simply to fall continuously in love with this vision of the future, to keep a high energy and not to let circumstances, your environment, automatic behaviors, negative emotions, well-known or unconscious habits divert you from your goals. What makes this technology so effective is that we perceive reality according to the pattern we recognize. That is, the connection between the neural networks of our brain and the objects, people, and places outside. For example, when you see someone you recognize, your neural networks instantly bring ... back to your memories and experience you had with that person on the opposite side. If you don't have a memory of someone, it's likely that you don't recognize the person. If you don't have in mind the thought and emotion images aroused by the mental film before your future comes true. If neural networks are not installed in your brain, how could you recognize your new companion, your new job, your new home, or your healed body? Consider that you can't open a Word document on a Mac computer if you haven't installed Microsoft Word software, if you don't feel the emotions associated with your future reality, and you don't create the corresponding energy. It's possible that you don't recognize your future, or that you don't have faith in him. When he indeed finds your energy and your emotional state not being in alignment with this experience, instead of feeling a feeling of certainty, you feel probably fear or doubt. A lot of participants at my higher level seminars told me that they are in Lior's third, fourth, and even fifth mental film, the previous ones being fully realized. I am always amazed to hear the story of their creation. It is a real lesson of humility. Despite the great differences in these creations, they all have a common point. They have accustomed their body to follow their mind on the path of a chosen future. It makes sense if you have taken the time to study. Memorize and create the neural connections representative of your future. It means that your attention has turned in this direction. And like you know now, energy follows tension. Look at Chart 10 in the appendix. You will see an example of brain activity of a participant watching his mental film. His brain is very energized because it is absorbed in his experience. There is a large amount of high beta and gamma brainwaves that activate the whole brain. To go further, create a reality in 3 dimensions. There is a last way we use mental film technology in our work once participants have lived. Created the neurological networks corresponding to their film, I ask them to choose a scene to inscribe it in a particular time space and live it in 3 dimensions during meditation. Maybe you have noticed that I avoid using the word visualize in my teachings. Indeed, visualization evokes rather a flat 2-dimensional image. For example, if you visualize a car, you create an image. My idea is rather that you use your 5 senses in order to make a 3-dimensional experience as close as possible to reality. Many people discovering my work wonder why I spend so much time asking participants to become aware of the space that occupies their body, of the space around their body, and the space that our room occupies in space. Besides the changes in brain coherence caused by these instructions, participants, in the conscious use of mental film, together with kaleidoscope, when participants start to create their reality in 3 dimensions, before mentally seeing anything, they are instructed to be a consciousness in the scene at the beginning. I want participants to project themselves in their scene only as consciousness, which means they have neither body nor sense. They are then only a consciousness in the space cafe, as if they were unable to see, hearing, to feel, touch, or taste. Once participants understand that they were a consciousness, I ask them to choose a scene in their mental film. Therefore, their brain naturally starts to add information, sensory, and naturally expressing a scene in 3 dimensions. The following instruction consists in feeling what is right to left, above and below them. Again, this fills the scene with structure, of form, and a 3-dimensional space. When they have an increasingly acute awareness of what is happening around them, their senses are even sharper, and the scene is enriched with new shapes, structure, curved, texture, smell, image, and sensation. Finally, when this scene comes to life in their mind, in this future space, they begin to incarnate in their body, not the one who is sitting meditating, but the physical body of their future. I ask them to feel their arms, their legs, their torsos, their muscles, and so on, until they are able to feel their whole body. In this scene, they are then ready to move there and to experiment this new reality. My theory is that when participants simultaneously activate enough neural networks in connection with people and things that are in their specific space-time, they increase their chances of doing a rich holographic experience of the IMX type. Indeed, when participants are present in a 3-dimensional finished scene, their brain activates largely, including neural networks in connection with sensations in motor, in their body, as well as the proprioception consciousness of the position of the body in the past space. It is then that they can make an intense sensory experience with their eyes closed that allows them to live their future in the present moment. Now look at graph 11 in the appendix. This is the brain imaging of a participant in meditation who lives a scene of her mental film seeming real. There is a lot of energy in her brain because she gives the scene all its dimensions. Afterwards, she testified to having lived a virtual sensory experience of great intensity. Her subjective experience could be objectively quantified on the brain imaging. When this woman has recreated in several dimensions a scene of her mental film during a meditation, she reported having had an intense experience without the help of her physical senses. On chart 11A, we see that her brain is in high beta wave, and gamma coherent energy in her is about 230 standard deviation above normal. The red arrow on chart 11b shows that there is a lot of energy in high beta while she enters gamma wave. The blue arrows indicate that there is also a lot of coherence in her brain. It is important to note that it is impossible for this woman to force her brain to enter this state. She lets many of our participants indicate that their experiences itatives were more real than any past external experience. Their sense had sharpened without the need to stimulate the outside, even when they were simply sitting in a seat with their eyes closed. Many said that during their lucid experiments, they felt certain smells of the type high cologne, scent of flowers such as jasmine or gardenia, or the familiar smell of the cook of the new car in which it was located. I also heard participants refer to specific memories, for example, having a beard of 3 days, the wind blowing in their hair, or the feeling that their body was filled with a powerful energy. Some also testified to having heard distinct sounds, for example, the bell from a church near their vacation place, or the barking of their dogs in their new home. Some participants also explained that the colors they had seen were incredibly clear, or that the taste of food, for example, coconut, chocolate, and cinnamon were amplified. The association of different senses literally created a new experience. It is our 5 senses that give life to our external reality. As a rule, when we make a new experience, everything we hear, smells, taste, and touch is sent to the brain through the 5 sensory channels. Once the information reaches the brain, the clusters of neurons begin to organize into a network. Then the brain BQ produces a chemical substance that is an emotion. Experience enriching the brain and creating an emotion that sends signals to new genes in the body. All this in the sensory intensity of the inner experience of the participants. Without recourse to the external sense, they modify their brain, their body, that biologically conform to this future that is already happening. That is exactly what this kind of experience allows. I love to hear a person who has just come out of meditation tell me, "But you do not understand. I was there. I know it will happen because it was already there, and I have already experienced it." Experience has already occurred when in this field of consciousness, one fully lives a new reality without body. The new experience serves as model to the physical reality. The more energy you give to your future, and the more you experience it in all its emotional intensity before it even appears in your life, the more you leave a significant energy imprint in this future reality, and your body will follow your energy. By continuing to place your attention on your future, you fall more deeply in love, and love being what connects everything. You unite yourself to this future. You attract to meditation of kaleidoscope and mental film. Before our higher level seminars, we ask our participants to prepare a mental film so that they can associate it with the video of the kaleidoscope during the meditation time proposed in internship. We begin by focusing in the technical heart you learned in Chapter 7. Then we remain in emotions rays for several minutes, and we let this energy radiate beyond our body in space. Then we offer them the meditation that follows. Arrive in the present moment. Open the eyes and fix the kaleidoscope once in transience. Watch your mental film. Spend, say, 8 minutes to view the kaleidoscope. Then 8 minutes in front of your mental film before starting. The same cycle again when you have sufficiently watched your mental film to be able to predict the next scene. This means that it has neurologically inscribed in your brain. Over time, you will associate the different moments of the song you have chosen with the different images of your mental film. Finally, watch for 7 minutes the kaleidoscope while listening alone, only the music of your mental film. By association, your brain automatically remembers the different images of your mental film. This leads you to biologically you remember better and better of your future, which automatically and repetitively activates the neural networks. You are programming your brain so that it prints this new future that has already occurred, while your emotions indicate new genes of biologically your body in preparation for this new future. Watch the kaleidoscope together with the mental film every day for a month, or at least try to watch your mental film twice a day as soon as you wake up and just before bed. You may even want to keep a log of all your wonderful and unexpected adventures and all the synchronicities that have occurred. With hindsight, these will be so many milestones on a map showing you the way to bring this future to life. Consider creating several mental films. For example, one for your health and well-being, and one for love relations in general, and prosperity.